This idea holds that life is not really a significant problem, which differs from what we usually think. Instead of seeing life as a constant series of problems to solve, it suggests that life itself is not a problem. We often feel that we are always trying to resolve issues from morning to night, but this idea is like saying, hey, life is not a problem in its essence. It prompts us to reconsider why and makes us reflect on important questions such as, why does the universe exist? Or even, how do we get enough food? It suggests that we should view life differently, not as a complicated puzzle but with a more detailed understanding. When oscillating between extremes, claiming that life is an insurmountable problem or that it is not a problem at all, there is a bold suggestion here that what troubles us could be like chasing a ghost, something that does not really exist. A key characteristic of neurotic behavior is its repetitive nature, where people find themselves trapped in unproductive life patterns again and again. The continuous cycle of birth and death, the routine of life as we know it, becomes a vicious circle. This occurs because we are trying to solve problems that are not only incredibly complex but that are not even problems in the first place. They just seem like problems. So when we struggle with impossible questions, we end up going in circles without finding an exit. Consider the various ghosts that persist in our thoughts. We often talk about having a survival instinct, framing the challenge of life as, how do I survive? Some may worry that if we discard this concern, people might lose the motivation to continue with their work. However, this drive to work in itself is another ghost. We believe we are compelled by mysterious forces, attributing our actions to invisible influences. It is crucial to focus on real tasks and describe them accurately. In doing so, the illusion of the instinctual ghost tends to fade away, revealing a clearer understanding of our actions. When we talk about a survival instinct, what does this mean? What evidence is there that a survival instinct exists? There is no evidence except that people survive until they don't. This is quite strange because what happens to the survival instinct when people do not survive? In this way, we discover that when we try to explain any kind of behavior or activity, assuming there is a motivating force, some kind of embodied spirit behind everything, we have not described what is happening clearly enough. This is presented differently when we try to describe anything and think we are describing something that exists by itself. As I have said many times, we are very troubled by the notion of things acting, things doing things, but all there is that the world seems material to us until we examine it closely. In other words, a distant nebula in the skies appears to be a solid star until you focus a giant telescope on it and distinguish the clear pattern of a spiral nebula. The concept of things is a sensation we get when we have not examined things closely enough, or when our instruments are not precise enough to penetrate what we are observing. But when the instruments are precise enough, what we get instead is a pattern, and the pattern is simply a form of behavior or activity. Consider this differently. Let's return to the human organism and ask, well, what about its shape? How is it that a human organism is contained? All organs are held by the skin. We will, of course, describe the structure of the skin and how it is held together. But then we will soon discover that we are also talking about the surrounding air that presses against the human skin with a pressure of about 15 pounds per square inch. So the question arises, what keeps the organism in shape? We find that it is not only what is happening inside the skin that keeps it in shape, but also what is happening outside the skin. When we begin to describe this more carefully, we discover that it is not entirely correct to say that it is the air that is doing this or that it is the organism that is doing this. We start to describe instead what Dew and Bentley in their fascinating book Non in Non call a transaction. That is, a buyer cannot buy unless someone is also selling. You cannot know anything unless there is something to know. This fact is constantly overlooked. Anything in the world, whether inanimate or animate, is there by virtue of being in a transactional relationship, not with something else, but with everything else. A human being, of course, has many relationships that are very complicated. Take, for instance, a doctor. They are not only related to their actual work in medicine, but may also be a parent related to a family, a citizen related to a community, and so forth. We start to imagine them, so to speak, apart from their relationships, a constant moving through all these different relationships, and thus somehow different from all of them. But this creates a ghost, a being independent of all the different relationships they are in, which strictly speaking is inseparable from those relationships. We cannot eliminate them. We can only describe them completely as the whole complex. This notion emphasizes the importance of understanding the intricate web of interactions that constitute life. Every organism exists within a multifaceted environment, and its behavior is intricately linked to that surrounding context. In other words, one might call every organism the behavior of the field or environment in which it exists. This perspective invites us to reconsider the conventional view of organisms as isolated entities, highlighting instead their integral role within a larger ecological framework. This does not mean that the organism is something pushed by the environment and is completely passive and inert, and that everything it does is merely a response to external stimuli. Such a reductionist view oversimplifies the dynamic relationship between an organism and its surroundings. While it is true that external factors, such as climate, availability of resources, and the presence of other organisms, play a significant role in shaping behaviors and actions, this does not account for the agency and adaptive capacities of the organism itself. Each organism actively engages with its environment, making choices and exhibiting behaviors that are not solely reactions, but are influenced by its own internal states, experiences, and inherent drive. Because in some way the organism is part of its environment. It is an object, a process in nature, in the cosmos, as much as everything in its environment. This relationship is bidirectional, meaning that while the environment exerts influences, the organism also contributes to shaping that environment through its actions and interactions. This interplay suggests that organisms are not merely passive recipients of environmental pressures, rather they are dynamic participants in a constant process of adaptation and evolution. By recognizing that organisms embody the complexities of their environments, we begin to appreciate the rich tapestry of life that exists around us. Every organism is a manifestation of its surroundings and simultaneously a shaper of them, leading to a profound interconnectedness among all forms of life. This understanding prompts us to acknowledge that life is not simply a linear chain of cause and effect, but a multifaceted interplay of forces where every action has a ripple effect, influencing not just the immediate environment, but also the broader ecological system. Ultimately, this perspective encourages us to view life as a holistic phenomenon, one that encompasses the myriad interactions and relationships between organisms and their environments. It invites us to reflect on our place within this intricate web, fostering a deeper appreciation for the complexity of life and the responsibilities that come with being an active participant in the ongoing dance of existence. There really is no way to separate the two. The intricate interplay between an organism and its environment is a fundamental aspect of existence that cannot be easily disentangled. Instead of talking, so to speak, in the simplistic terminology of doers and deeds, attackers and victims, where one party is perceived as the active agent and the other as a passive recipient, we can simplify things considerably by limiting ourselves to describing what is actually happening in the moment. This approach encourages a deeper understanding of our experiences and interactions, prompting us to recognize that life is far more nuanced than the binary oppositions we often create in our minds. By adopting this more holistic perspective, we obtain a peculiarly clarified image of the world that allows us to see beyond the various kinds of ghosts that can cloud our understanding. These ghosts might represent outdated beliefs, unfounded fears, or even societal expectations that lead us to view life as a constant struggle for survival or success. Instead, when we focus on the dynamic relationships and interactions that characterize our existence, we begin to dissolve these illusions. In this way, we also start to develop some preliminary intuition or feeling regarding the notion that life is not merely a problem to be solved. We begin to understand that our experiences are not simply challenges we must navigate or conflicts we must overcome. Rather, life can be seen as a rich tapestry of relationships and connections, where the emphasis is on engagement and understanding rather than opposition and competition. In other words, it is not a competition between us and our environment. We are not adversaries in a battle for resources or survival. Instead, we are participants in a complex and interwoven existence. This conception of life turns out to be fundamentally false. The idea that life is merely a set of obstacles we must tackle diminishes the profound nature of our experiences and overlooks the deeper truths that lie within our interactions with the world around us. By reframing our understanding in this way, we can start to appreciate the beauty and intricacy of life itself, recognizing that it is not about winning or losing, but about experiencing, learning, and growing. This shift in perspective opens up a realm of possibilities, allowing us to approach life with a sense of curiosity and wonder, rather than fear and anxiety. While we reflect on all this, we are exploring how we see things and questioning what we normally believe we understand. The mix of what is visible and what is hidden gives us the opportunity to truly understand what life is about. Thinking of life not just as a problem, but as a complicated way of behaving, makes us reconsider how we view things. Let's continue seeking clarity and understanding the small connections between us and the world. If you enjoyed this journey of thoughts, consider subscribing for more reflections on the intricate beauty of life.